Hello there, folks. Let me start with something that might surprise you coming from me. Warren Buffett. You know, I've been pretty fortunate in my life. I turned a paper route into billions, bought my first stock at 11, and built Berkshire Hathaway into what it is today. But here's a highlight. Shocking admission I don't make lightly. If I had fallen into the debt trap that so many young people fall into today, I very likely wouldn't be sitting here talking to you as one of the wealthiest people on earth. I might have ended up just another comfortable retiree in Omaha, or worse, still working to pay off mistakes from decades ago. Think about that for a second. Debt has the power to derail even the best laid plans, and right now, I'm looking at an entire generation, you millennials, that's facing more debt pressure than any generation before you. The numbers are staggering. According to recent studies, the average millennial carries over $27,900 in non-mortgage debt, credit cards, student loans, car payments, personal loans. Total student debt alone across your generation tops $1.7 trillion. That's not pocket change. That's a mountain that keeps growing with interest while you're trying to build a life, start a family, or even dream about retiring early. When I was your age, well, a bit younger, I was obsessed with making money and keeping it. I delivered papers, sold gum, collected bottle caps, anything to earn a buck, and then make that buck work for me. I never borrowed a dime I didn't have to. My first big purchase was that stock at age 11, 3 shares of City Service, preferred for $114.75. I paid cash I'd saved. No credit card, no loan, no interest eating away at my future. And that simple habit, no debt, save first, invest what's left, let compounding do its magic over decades. But today, it's different. Society tells you it's normal to borrow. Good debt, they call it. Student loans for education, mortgages for homes, car loans for transportation, even credit cards for rewards. And I'll be honest with you, some borrowing can make sense if used wisely. A modest mortgage on a home you can truly afford. Fine. But most of what I see isn't wise. It's lifestyle debt. It's buying things you don't need with money you haven't earned to impress people you don't even like. Here's the contrarian truth most people won't tell you. You absolutely can retire early without debt. In fact, you're far more likely to retire early if you avoid debt altogether. Debt is the single biggest obstacle standing between most millennials and highlight financial freedom. It's not your salary. It's not the economy. It's not bad luck. It's the interest payments quietly draining your wealth every single month. I once knew a young man, bright, ambitious, great job in tech out in California. He made 6 figures before 30, bought a luxury car on a loan, financed a big wedding, maxed out cards on travel and gadgets, felt rich, looked rich, but by 35, he was drowning $80,000 in high interest debt, minimum payments eating half his take home pay, no investments growing, no emergency fund, one layoff away from disaster. I watched him spend the next decade digging out of that hole. He's okay now, but those lost years of highlight, compounding, gone forever. You don't have to make that mistake. You're smarter than that. You're starting at a time when information is everywhere, when low-cost investing is easier than ever, when side hustles and remote work give you options my generation never had. But none of that matters if debt is working against you 24/7. So here's my promise to you today. Over the next half hour or so, I'm going to lay out exactly why debt is so dangerous for your generation, why most millennials struggle with it, and, most importantly, how you can avoid it completely and set yourself up for the kind of early retirement that most people only dream about. No gimmicks, no get-rich-quick schemes. Just the same simple, boring principles that turned a kid from Omaha into, well, me. Stick with me. You've got this. Let me paint a clear picture for you, because I want you to see exactly what you're up against. You millennials are walking into adulthood carrying more debt than any generation in history. And it's not entirely your fault, but it is your responsibility to fix it. Here's the reality. The average millennial has around $27,900 in non-mortgage debt. That's credit cards, student loans, car notes, personal loans, the works. Add in mortgages for those who've bought homes, and total household debt for your age group is pushing six figures for many. Student loan debt alone, over $1.7 trillion across the country, with the typical borrower owing $37,000 or more. And unlike my generation, where a college degree cost a fraction of today's prices, you're paying 300%, 400%, sometimes 500% more in inflation-adjusted dollars for the same education. I look at those numbers and shake my head, not because I'm judging you, but because I know what interest does over time. Every dollar you pay in interest is a dollar that can't compound for you. If you're sending $500 a month to credit card companies at 18 to 24% interest, that's money working against you, day and night. Meanwhile, the stock market has returned about 10% annually over the long run. Do you see the gap? One side is quietly building wealth. The other is quietly destroying it. When I was growing up in Omaha during the Depression and World War II, borrowing for consumption was almost unheard of. You saved up and paid cash, or you did without. My father was a stockbroker, and even he drilled into me. Never borrow money unless it's to buy something that produces more than the interest costs. A reasonable home mortgage? Maybe. A car loan for a depreciating vehicle? No. Credit card debt for dinners, clothes, vacations? Absolutely not. But today, the world tells you the opposite. Advertisements everywhere. Buy now, pay later. 0% financing for 18 months. Student loans marketed as an investment in yourself. Car dealers pushing 7-year loans so you can drive something flashy. Social media showing friends living lives that look perfect. New apartments, trips to Bali, the latest iPhone. It's easy to feel like you're falling behind if you don't keep up. So you borrow. And before you know it, you're not building wealth. You're renting someone else's. I once knew a young couple in their late 20s. Good jobs, both engineers in Denver. They made well over $150,000 combined. On paper, they should have been saving thousands every month. Instead, they were living paycheck to paycheck. Why? A $60,000 wedding financed partly on credit cards. 2 new cars with $700 monthly payments each. A house they stretched to buy because rates were low. Student loans of $80,000 between them. Renting furniture. Subscriptions piling up. Their total monthly debt payments exceeded $3,500. After taxes and living expenses, nothing was left to invest. They felt trapped, even though they earned more than 95% of Americans. That's the modern debt trap. High income, higher obligations. The psychological weight is heavier than people admit. Debt creates stress. It limits your choices. Want to switch jobs? Harder when you have payments due. Want to start a business? Riskier when creditors are watching. Want to retire early? Almost impossible when you're still paying for yesterday's lifestyle. Here's the blunt truth. Debt doesn't just delay your financial freedom, it can destroy it entirely. Every year you spend servicing debt is a year your money isn't growing at 7%, 8%, 10%. Let's run a quick example. Suppose at age 25 you could either invest $500 a month or send that same $500 to debt payments. At age 65, assuming 8% average returns, that invested money would be worth over $1.2 million. Send to interest instead. Zero. Gone forever. You're in your prime earning years right now. The decisions you make in the next decade will echo for the rest of your life. I'm not saying this to scare you. I'm saying it because I care about your future. I've seen too many good people work hard their whole lives only to reach retirement age with little to show for it because debt ate their wealth. But here's the encouraging part. You can change this. You're smart, resourceful, and you have time on your side. More time than I had when I started. The problem is real, and it's big, but it's not unbeatable. In the chapters ahead, I'll show you exactly how to break free and build the kind of wealth that leads to true freedom. You deserve that. Let's keep going. Now that we've laid out the size of the debt problem, let's talk about why so many bright, hardworking millennials, people just like you, end up stuck in it, even when you know better. I've watched this pattern for decades, and it boils down to a handful of traps that catch almost everyone at some point. The biggest one is the lure of instant gratification. When I was your age, the temptations were smaller, a new radio, maybe a nicer bicycle. But you face a fire hose of desire every day. Instagram feeds full of perfect vacations, TikTok videos of unboxing the latest gadgets, ads that follow you across the internet promising happiness in a box delivered tomorrow. It's designed to make waiting feel painful. Borrowing feels like the solution. Swipe a card, click buy now, pay later, and the pain goes away for a moment. But it's a psychological trick. Studies show that spending on experiences or things gives a quick dopamine hit, then fades fast. Meanwhile, the bill lingers. Here's a contrarian truth most folks won't admit. The people who look richest on social media are often the poorest in reality. I once knew a young man in San Francisco, sharp software engineer, early 30s, pulling down $200,000 a year. On the outside, he had it all. Leased Tesla, trendy loft, weekends in Tahoe, photos everywhere. Behind the scenes, $45,000 in credit card debt, $1,200 monthly car payment, rent he could barely cover after lifestyle expenses. When the 2022 tech layoffs hit, he was let go. No emergency fund. Credit score tanked from missed payments. Took him 3 years to climb out, and he's still behind on retirement savings. The trap was comparison. He borrowed to keep up an image that wasn't even real. Another common failure is misunderstanding good debt versus bad debt. Schools and parents push student loans as an investment. Car dealers call auto loans normal. Mortgage brokers say bigger is better because it's leverage. But most of what passes for good debt today is just expensive consumption in disguise. A $60,000 new car that loses 20% of its value the moment you drive off the lot. That's not an investment. A graduate degree costing $150,000 for a job paying $70,000? Often a terrible return. I've always believed the only truly good debt is the kind where the asset reliably produces more cash than the interest costs. And even then, I've avoided it whenever possible. Then there's lifestyle creep, maybe the sneakiest trap of all. You get a raise, congratulations, and suddenly your spending rises to match. Bigger apartment, nicer restaurants, premium subscriptions, fancier gym. Before you know it, you're earning twice as much as 5 years ago, but saving less. I saw this with a friend's son in Chicago. Started at $55,000 out of college. Frugal, saving 20%. 5 promotions later, earning $140,000, but his expenses had ballooned to $130,000 a year. Still zero invested. He told me, I'll save when I hit $200,000. But the pattern just repeated. Lifestyle creep is like boiling a frog, 1 degree at a time. You don't notice until it's too late. Overconfidence plays a role too. Many millennials think, I'll pay it off next year when I get the bonus, or I'll invest once the debt is gone. But life intervenes. Weddings, babies, medical bills, moves. The debt stays. Interest compounds against you. I knew a couple in Austin who put a $30,000 destination wedding on credit cards, figuring they'd knock it out quickly. 10 years later, with kids and a house, they're still paying it off, now with interest totaling more than the original amount. The consequence of falling into these traps is simple but brutal. Lost time. Time is the one thing money can't buy back. Every year you spend servicing debt is a year your investments aren't growing. At 7 to 10% average annual returns, money doubles roughly every 7 to 10 years. Miss the first decade because of debt, and you've permanently cut your future wealth in half, or worse. I'm not telling you this to discourage you. Quite the opposite. Recognizing these traps is the first step to avoiding them. You're smarter and more aware than most generations before you. You question norms. You seek out information. That's your edge. Most people fail because they drift along with society's defaults, but you don't have to. In the next chapter, I'll show you the straightforward path that sidesteps every one of these pitfalls and puts compounding to work for you instead of against you. You've got the power to write a different story. All right, we've talked about the problem and why so many fall into the traps. Now let's get to the part I've been waiting to share. The solution. It's not complicated. It's not flashy. It doesn't require a finance degree or a 6-figure income. It just requires a decision to live differently from the crowd. And I promise you, it works. The core strategy is this: live below your means, avoid debt like it's poison, and let your money compound over time. That's it. I've followed this path my entire life, and it's the reason a boy from Omaha who started with nothing could build what I have today. When I say live below your means, I mean spend less than you earn, comfortably less. If you make $70,000 a year, figure out how to live well on $50,000. The gap becomes your power. It's the seed corn for your future wealth. I bought my house in 1958 for $31,500, about 2 years' worth of my income at the time. I've lived in the same house ever since. No upgrades, no second homes, no borrowing against it. That simple choice freed up decades of cash flow to invest. Here's the contrarian truth. Frugality isn't deprivation, it's freedom. When you don't need much to be happy, no one can control you with money. You can take risks, change jobs, start businesses, or retire early because your burn rate is low. Debt does the opposite. It chains you to a paycheck. So how do you do this practically? First, treat savings like a bill you must pay before anything else. When your paycheck hits, move 20%, or whatever you can manage, straight to savings and investments. Automate it so you never see it. I've always saved first and lived on the rest. Second, buy used or modest for big items. Drive a reliable car until it's truly done, not until you're bored with it. I drove a 2001 Cadillac for years, then a 2014 model. Nothing fancy. Third, question every purchase. Do I need this, or do I just want it right now? Wait 30 days on non-essentials. Most urges fade. On debt, avoid it almost entirely. No credit card balances. Pay them off monthly or don't use them. No car loans. No personal loans. For education, choose schools you can afford without crushing debt, or work while studying like I did. For housing, buy only what you can comfortably pay with a 15-year mortgage and put at least 20% down. I've never liked long mortgages. They're just slow motion servitude. I once knew a millennial couple in Omaha, both teachers, combined income around $90,000. They could have bought a $400,000 house like their friends. Instead, they bought a $180,000 fixer-upper with cash saved over 3 years. No mortgage. They drove paid-off used cars, saved 30% of their income into index funds. By age 38, they had over $600,000 invested and no payments except utilities and taxes. Now they work because they want to, not because they have to. That's the power of the solution in action. The psychological trap to fight is the voice that says, I deserve this, or everyone else has it. Everyone else is broke. You want to be wealthy. Act like the wealthy act. Quietly, patiently, without borrowed flash. Here's the math that should excite you. Start at 30. Save $500 a month in a low-cost S&P 500 index fund, averaging 8% after inflation. By 60, you'd have over $1 million. Start at 25, closer to $1.8 million. That's with no raises, no side hustles, just steady, debt-free saving. Now imagine what happens when you get raises, bonuses, or invest more as income grows. Compounding turns modest habits into massive wealth. If you ignore this path, you'll likely spend your best years enriching banks instead of yourself. You'll work longer, stress more, and wonder where the money went. But if you embrace it, even imperfectly, you'll wake up one day with options most people never have. You'll own your time. I'm not asking you to live like a monk forever. I enjoy a good cherry Coke and a steak as much as anyone. But delayed gratification is the price of real freedom. Start small. Cut one subscription. Sell something you don't use. Put the proceeds to work. Build the habit. You're young. Time is your greatest asset, and compounding is undefeated. You can do this. I believe in you. In the next chapter, I'll share more real stories, successes, and cautionary tales, so you can see exactly how this plays out in real lives. Stories stick better than statistics, so let me share some real ones I've seen up close. Successes that prove this works, and failures that show what happens when you ignore the principles. These aren't made-up tales. They're people I've known or followed over the years. First, a success story that still makes me smile. Back in the late 1990s, I met a young woman named Emily at a Berkshire shareholder meeting. She was 24, fresh out of college in Nebraska, with $28,000 in student loans and a starting teacher's salary of $32,000. Most of her friends were moving to bigger cities, buying new cars, and putting furniture on credit. Emily did the opposite. She lived at home for 2 extra years, drove a paid-off 1992 Honda Civic her parents gave her, and threw every spare dollar at those loans. Paid them off in 4 years. Then, she kept the same frugal habits. Rented a modest apartment, cooked at home, bought clothes secondhand. She invested $300 a month into a simple Vanguard index fund tracking the S&P 500. No stock picking, no hot tips, just steady contributions. Fast forward to today. Emily is 51. She never earned more than $65,000 in a year. But because she stayed debt-free and let compounding work, her portfolio is worth over $1.4 million. She retired from teaching at 48, now travels part-time, volunteers, and lives exactly how she wants. No financial stress. no payments hanging over her head. She told me recently, I never felt deprived. I just chose freedom over stuff. That's the reward of avoiding debt and living below your means. Now contrast that with a cautionary tale. I knew a bright young man named Alex in the early 2010s, software developer in Seattle, making $110,000 by age 28. On paper, he was set. But Alex fell into every trap we've talked about. He financed a $65,000 Audi because I work hard, I deserve it. Took out a big mortgage on a downtown condo because real estate always goes up. Racked up $18,000 in credit card debt on travel, dining, and tech gadgets. His monthly obligations: $1,400 car, $2,200 mortgage, $600 minimum on cards and loans. After taxes, almost nothing left to invest. Then 2020 hit. Layoffs in tech. Alex lost his job. No emergency fund. He sold the car at a loss. Drained his small 401k to cover payments, and eventually foreclosed on the condo. By 2022, he was 38, starting over in a cheaper city with a lower paying job and a credit score in the 500s. He's recovering now, finally debt-free at 42. But those lost years of compounding, he figures he's $800,000, $1 million behind where he could have been. The psychological toll was worse. Years of anxiety, arguments with his partner, feeling like a failure despite being talented. Debt didn't just cost him money, it cost him peace. Here's another pair for contrast. Two brothers I've known since they were kids here in Omaha. Same parents, same values taught. Brother A, let's call him Tom, took the frugal path. Joined the military out of high school, used the GI Bill for college debt-free, bought a small house with a 15-year mortgage in his 20s, drove old trucks, invested 20% of every paycheck into index funds. By 40, Tom had no debt, $750,000 invested, and owned his home outright. He left the military, started a small consulting business, and is financially independent today at 48. Brother B, Mike, went to an expensive private college on loans, wanted the college experience, graduated with $95,000 in debt, took a corporate job, kept upgrading cars and apartments to match his rising salary. Always reasoned, I'll pay it down later. Lifestyle creep hit hard. At 45, Mike still has $60,000 in student loans, a big mortgage, two car payments, and only $180,000 saved for retirement. He works long hours, worries constantly about job security, and knows he'll be working well into his late 60s. Same upbringing, wildly different outcomes, all because of choices around debt and spending. One more quick example of quiet success. A millennial couple I met a few years ago through a friend, both nurses in Kansas City, combined income $120,000. They bought a $190,000 house in 2015 with 20% down, 15-year mortgage. Drove used cars paid in cash. Avoided all consumer debt. Maxed out Roth IRAs and 401k every year. By 2024, at ages 36 and 38, they had $820,000 invested. No debt except a small remaining mortgage balance they're ahead on. They're planning to semi-retire in their mid-40s. One will keep working part-time for fun and health insurance. The other will stay home with future kids or pursue passions, all from ordinary jobs and extraordinary discipline. These stories aren't exceptions. They're proof. The path works if you walk it. Debt-free, modest living, consistent investing. It's boring, but it's unbeatable. You get to choose which side of these stories you want to live. We've covered a lot of ground today: the problem, the traps, the solution, and real stories that prove it works. Now it's time to turn wisdom into action. I'm not going to leave you with just ideas. I want you walking away with clear, doable steps you can start today. Remember, I started small, pinned money from papers, a few shares of stock, and built from there. You can too. Step 1. Get crystal clear on where your money is going right now. For the next 30 days, track every single dollar you spend. Use a free app, a spreadsheet, or even a notebook. I still review my own expenses regularly. It keeps me honest. You'll be shocked at the leaks. $6 coffees here, $15 lunches there, subscriptions you forgot about. One young fellow I know in Lincoln found he was spending $280 a month on food delivery alone. Cutting that in half freed up $1,680 a year to invest. Knowledge is power. Once you see the numbers, the choices become obvious. Step 2. Build a small emergency fund first. Aim for $1,000 as fast as you can. Sell something you don't use. Pick up a weekend gig. Skip a few nights out. This cushion keeps small surprises from turning into credit card debt. Once you hit $1,000, expand it to 3 to 6 months of essential living expenses in a high-yield savings account. I've seen too many good people derailed by a car repair or medical bill they couldn't cover. Step 3. If you already have debt, attack it with focus. Use the debt snowball method. List your debts smallest to largest, pay minimums on everything, and throw every extra dollar at the smallest one. When it's gone, roll that payment into the next. The quick wins build momentum. A millennial nurse I know in Denver had 5 debts: $2,200 credit card, $4,800 car loan, $9,000 personal loan, $18,000 credit card, and $32,000 in student loans. She knocked out the smallest in 5 months, then the next in 7. Within 3 years, everything except the student loans was gone, and she was putting $1,200 a month toward investments instead of interest. Step 4. Save and invest before you spend on wants. Set up automatic transfers the day you get paid. 10%, 15%, 20%, whatever you can manage, straight to a separate account or retirement plan. Treat it like a non-negotiable bill. Open a Roth IRA if you qualify. The growth is tax-free forever. If your job offers a 401k match, take every penny. It's free money. Invest in low-cost index funds. I've recommended the S&P 500 for decades because it's simple and it works. You don't need to beat the market. Just own it cheaply. Step 5. Guard against lifestyle creep. When you get a raise, bonus, or tax refund, pretend it's not there for spending. Bank at least half. One couple I advised in Kansas got $8,000 raises each last year. Instead of upgrading their cars or apartment, they increased their investing by $1,000 a month combined. That single decision will add hundreds of thousands to their retirement nest egg. Step 6. Make frugality a game, not a punishment. Buy quality used items when possible: cars, furniture, clothes. Cook good meals at home. Find free or low-cost entertainment, hikes, libraries, game nights. I've enjoyed simple pleasures my whole life. Reading, bridge with friends, a cherry Coke. Happiness doesn't scale with spending after a certain modest point. The psychological trap here is perfectionism, thinking you have to do everything at once or it's not worth starting. Nonsense. Start with one step. Cut one expense. Save $50 this month. Small wins compound into big changes, just like your money will. If you ignore these steps, nothing changes. You'll keep enriching lenders while your own wealth stays flat. But if you take even a few of them, you'll feel the difference in months. Less stress, more options, a growing account balance. Time is on your side. A 30-year-old saving $400 a month at 8% average return will have over $600,000 by 60. Increase that as income grows, stay debt-free, and early retirement becomes real. You don't need to be extreme, just consistent. I'm cheering for you. In our final chapter, I'll leave you with one last gentle warning and some parting encouragement. We've come to the end of our time together, and I want to leave you with one last gentle but firm message, a final warning wrapped in encouragement, because I've lived long enough to see how this story usually plays out. Here's the blunt truth most people never hear clearly enough. Debt is the single greatest thief of your financial future, and it steals quietly. It doesn't break into your house at night. It just takes a little bit every month, $50 here, $200 there, until one day you look up and realize you've given away hundreds of thousands, maybe millions, in future wealth to banks and credit card companies. Interest compounds mercilessly against you. A $15,000 credit card balance at 20% interest with minimum payments can take over 30 years to pay off and cost more than $40,000 total. That's money that could have grown into a $500,000 nest egg instead. I've watched too many good people, smart, hardworking, kind, reach their 50s or 60s and quietly regret the borrowing they did in their 20s and 30s. They tell themselves, if I'd only known, or if I'd just waited, or if I hadn't needed to keep up. The house they stretched for, the cars they financed, the weddings, the vacations, the upgrades, all paid for twice, once with money, once with time. One man I knew well, a successful doctor in California, earned millions over his career, but he loved nice things. Boats, vacation homes, luxury cars, all leveraged. When the market dipped in 2008, margin calls forced sales at the worst time. He recovered financially, but he once told me privately, Warren, I'll never get those years back. I worked until 70 when I could have stopped at 60. Debt and leverage didn't make him richer. They made him older. Here's the contrarian reality I've learned over 9 decades. The people who achieve true wealth and freedom aren't the ones with the most impressive lifestyles along the way. They're the ones with the fewest obligations. They own their time because almost nothing is required of them financially. No payments, no interest, no fear of the next bill. That's real richness. You millennials have more opportunities than any generation before you. Side hustles, remote work, global markets at your fingertips, information everywhere. But you also face stronger temptations and higher costs. The pull to borrow has never been greater. The ads, the apps, the buy now, pay later buttons, they're all designed to separate you from your future. So my final warning is this. Don't trade your tomorrows for todays that aren't even that special. That new phone will feel old in a year. That trip will become photos on a screen. But the money you keep and invest today will still be working for you in 2045, 2055, and beyond, growing while you sleep, giving you choices your indebted friends won't have. I'm not asking you to live like a pauper. I enjoy life, good food, good company, the occasional indulgence. But I've never let wants disguised as needs push me into borrowing. And because of that, I've had a lifetime of freedom. You can have that too. Start where you are. Make one better choice this week. Skip the finance purchase. Put $100 extra toward debt or savings. Read one more page about investing. Small decisions compound into destinies. I'm optimistic about you. You're aware. You question things. You want more from life than just working to pay bills. That's why I've spent this time with you today. The path to early retirement without debt isn't secret or complicated. It's just uncommon. Be uncommon. You deserve a future where money serves you, not the other way around. Where Monday mornings don't feel heavy. Where you can say yes to what matters and no to the rest. That future is still yours to claim. Thank you for listening. If these words helped even a little, consider sticking around for more plain talk on building wealth the simple way. Maybe next time we'll dig deeper into compounding or picking great businesses. No pressure, just an open door. Take care of yourself. Live below your means for a while, and one day you'll live exactly as you wish, free,